everyone. It's me, Amber, with Amber Black Chats. And as you can see today, I have a guest with me. And if you're listening, you can't see. But if you're watching, you see I have a guest with me. If you are not watching, you can hear someone else breathing in the room, maybe. I don't know. But there is someone else with me today. This is my husband, Brian Black, without whom there wouldn't be an Amber Black Chat. So just be Amber Chats. So.
I see what you did there.
Yeah. So he's joining me today for the last installment of the Redemptive Grace series for Amber Black Chats. So again, this is from the book that I wrote a while back, and you can buy it if you want. It's on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, called Redemptive Grace. The purpose of writing it was to share stories about God's faithfulness and the way he restores and redeems, and just give you stories from my life, but not to give any credit to me because I am fallen and broken and a mess, but to point you to the Lord. So this is the last chapter of the book, the last installment of this series. So if you've missed any, go back and listen to them and catch up. If you ever have any questions, you can always reach out via any of the social media channels. I'm happy to answer questions or have a discussion with you, or even just if you have a prayer request or something, send it my way. So that's a little precursor.
Yeah.
And now we'll get to the meat of it all. So the last couple of episodes.
I'm dangerous in the studio.
He's new here.
Sorry.
Yeah, you have to be really careful.
Yeah.
It's not a professional studio.
And I'm not small.
It's
so.
legitimately a cut out an alcove in our bedroom. So
Yes.
So we're working with what we got. So be careful.
I won't move anymore.
Okay. So the last couple of episodes, this is, like I said, the way the book was written is like chronological of like moments in my life. And we're getting to, like we just talked about, going through separation and a divorce, going through that feeling, those feelings of isolation and inadequacy and less than, unworthiness, and all the things that come with when you're feeling broken and betrayed and hurt. So it's easy to remember those negative times of our lives and just stay on a downer. But the reason I asked Brian to be a part of this section of the book is because he's kind of an inspiration for this section of the book. And he's also like, for both of us, not just Brian, but for both of us, Brian's story, I'm not going to make him share that today, but as far as we both come from a place of separation and divorce, and that our marriage to each other is a second marriage for both of us, which I feel is the ultimate picture of what redemption looks like. Like neither of us deserve to get a second chance at being a husband and wife. Neither of us have it figured out. We're both messes and we're both broken and super sinful. And yet, because God is so good and he loves us so much, that he is infinite in his love and he is unconditional in his love, while we are very finite and very conditional.
Yeah.
And
not me, of course.
Right. Everyone but Brian struggles with that, I'm sure. But being married again is, I feel, a beautiful gift from the Lord, and is a visual of what redemptive grace looks like. So I hinted to some of the things that we're going to talk about today in the last couple of episodes. Okay. I know we're on the last episode.
Wow.
Are you so excited?
So excited.
So do you listen to the podcast?
Yes, I do. Surprisingly enough.
I just didn't know if did you read the book?
Most of it.
I was just curious. I probably should have asked you that before the camera was on.
Put me on the spot.
I'm just curious.
I have a copy.
You do have a copy. It's right here.
Oh, is that mine?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was just sitting up in the shelf in the closet. So
with all the notes you've written me.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Fine. Anyway, details.
Semantics.
So, yes. So, at the beginning of the last chapter, I told you guys about when I was in the place of separation, and divorce was imminent. I was very sad, very lonely, and this is really a Holy Spirit moment that Brian was involved in that he didn't realize from much later in life, or at least a year later in life, to know about. But how God used him in my story before I'd even met Brian. So a little backstory is that Brian attended the main campus of a church, and when my first husband and I started going to the same church, we were going to the satellite campus. And so Brian actually knew my first husband, Mark. Yes. They were actually in a men's group together. And did, so they knew each other ish. I mean, I
wouldn't say, we were in that men's group, and we would, have lunch as a group of guys and just pray together, talk about life, how we can pray for each other, things like that. Okay. So at this time in my first marriage, or what I'm about to talk about, pre-free. I love pre-free everything. Yeah. I've shared with you the stuff that I struggled with, and stuff that my husband was dealing with some stuff too. So part of that was in our social media world. We had joined all of our social media accounts. So we were one of those hyphenated couples. Do with that what you will. I'm not saying all the people who are hyphenated out there have issues. We're not hyphenated, but also I'm not going to be posting about football. And why? I don't want to, nor am I going to post about dogs. Wow. Low blow on the podcast.
So our social medias are not linked for a couple of reasons. Yeah. Those being
this does not follow the outline you gave me at all.
Sorry, honey. So we had my first husband, I had a shared Facebook account. And so because of that, I would see posts from this guy that I didn't know. I just knew his name. And I just knew that he was in a men's group with my first husband. And it really was a lot of posts about Notre Dame football and AC Reynolds football. Those, and I don't care. So I didn't read those. I didn't read them. I just know that's what
I was single. So what else was I going to post about?
I don't know, but I
didn't have dogs then.
I'm just saying that that's not going to be something I'm going to stop scrolling to read. That's all I'm saying, right?
Yes.
Every once in a while there'd be a funny story or an anecdote or goofy picture, and I'm like, oh, this guy's funny, and just keep scrolling.
And he's dashingly handsome.
I never said that at this phase of my life. For the love of pizza.
Okay, she did not say that.
I surely didn't. So, and the other thing that I had gleaned from his social media presence was that he had been married before and that he had 2 daughters, and he would post these really sad, posts when his girls wouldn't be with him and they would be with their mom, and not desperate sad, but just I miss my girls, or I wish I could take them to get ice cream, or just something like that. So all that was just in the back of my brain. It hadn't registered. It didn't really mean anything. Honestly, it's just because there's so many people on Facebook and you just scroll sometimes. So all of that backstory to give you a little bit of context, people.
Long story short.
Right. I give Brian a hard time because he always tells long stories, but he always starts with long story short. Yeah. But they're rarely short. But they needed the background.
Totally agree.
So that's backstory. Okay. That's the preamble, the prologue, if you will.
So you were going to the satellite campus.
No. So yes, we were at the satellite campus when my first husband left. So at that time, I was like we talked about, I was very, very, very low. And I think I even mentioned this in the last episode, was that I had people I knew who lived far away. And I knew that if I reached out to them, I could go and stay with them and just have fun and just be stupid, and in my head, no consequences, just feel good temporarily.
Escapism, as it were.
Yes, which my therapist says it's avoidance,
but I think escapism sounds nicer.
Sounds better.
I think so.
I agree.
So I'm sitting at my computer, I have a tab open of Facebook, and then I had a different tab open because the Facebook account was still like a joint account. And then over on the other tab I had open was an airline situation, and I had picked my ticket, put my credit card information in. I'd already talked to my mom about watching my kids for a couple weeks, and like literally all I had to do was hit purchase or buy or whatever the thing was, and that decision would have been made, and I would have gone because I'd spent the money, and so I would have gone because of
anything you're fiscally responsible.
Right. So which this was what was so crazy, was that the Facebook tab like refreshed on its own. I wasn't even active on that tab, and it refreshed on its own, and when it did, the post that was on my screen was from Brian. So do you mind if I read your post, or can you see it to read it? It's your choice.
I can't see it to read it.
I know my notes over here on the side are perfect for me, but
yes,
not perfect for everybody else, and that's okay. But I want to read, this is what refreshed on my Facebook and got my attention, with me knowing he had been divorced, that he had daughters, and when he wasn't with his daughters, he was sad, and he cared about football. It says, drove around a lot last night, thinking about everything leading up to now in my life. Some things have been great, some things have been horrible, but at the end of the day, all I can focus on is how many great things that God has blessed me with. And the things that were bad are in my past for a reason. So I think I'll just leave them there. That's where they belong. So I read that, and it got my attention like a cold water on the face or something. Like, snap out of it, Amber. And I immediately closed the tab for the airline ticket, and I was thinking, oh my goodness, this guy is a Christian, or he professes what I profess. I know he goes to church. I know he's been where I am. And how is he not angry? Because I was very angry, and I was more sad than angry. But you feel all these things, and
yes, it is a lot of emotions, and how to deal with them is the hard part.
Yes, and so I was going to run away temporarily just to catch my breath in my head, which would have been complete destruction. Because while these people would have offered a good time, there would have inevitably been consequences and emotional baggage, natural consequences that would have followed me. So I feel like God used Facebook, Brian's post, to redirect me.
Which, if anything, shows you that God can use anything and anybody.
Oh, that's true, though. Yeah, that's true. That's a fair point.
Because that was a time in my life as well. A matter of fact, I think I had just turned 39.
Yeah.
The day before.
I think it was like your last, because I think there was like a thing before that about the last one before 40 or something.
The big 40 or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I remember I literally had been driving around, and I was just like, I never thought I would be here at 39 years old. I never thought that I would be single, that I wouldn't be able to be around my kids anytime I wanted to. So it was, like you said, it's a whole lot of emotions, and it's just like sorting through them and not being mad at God, and not being, I don't know, just trying to determine what's next, or like you were saying, what direction do I go, or what is the right way for me now? Or because again, you had no idea how you ended up where you were.
Yes.
As myself.
Yeah. You kind of go to a place like, is this real life?
Yes.
Or is it just like a nightmare? Or, I know, the things, but it's a lot to process. Yes. So when I was reading that, and after I calmed down, I was like, because I started crying, and anybody who knows me knows, I cry for things that aren't real. Like, I cry at fireworks. I cry at any fantasy movie, even if I've seen it. Like, every time Dobby dies in Harry Potter, even when I'm reading the book, I cry. But when real life stuff happens, I have to get a poker face because I'm like, why are you crying? So there's some stuff there, but
That's a whole nother
I'm getting
episode.
help. But anyway, reading that
Aren't we all?
post, like just broke me, and I just started crying. And I'm like, I need to know how this person who professes faith and, you know, and is being positive, and how does, because I knew like in my future I'd have to be having conversations about my kids,
Yeah.
you know, and that's like literally all I ever wanted to be was a mom. And so the thought of you take my kids away from me for any amount of time,
Yeah.
like what's the point of my life?
That's a big struggle.
Yeah. And so my, how are you, like, I was literally reading, like, how is this guy, like, how is he here and not like hasn't burned down the world or whatever?
Well, in fairness,
But I didn't know, this is all I knew was from that post.
fair enough. Fair enough.
Not like being married to you for several years now.
Oh,
Going
I wasn't even going there. But
retrospectively, like, you know, he had stuff. I just didn't. He didn't put it on
well,
Facebook.
no. What I was going to say is like not in retrospect. In fairness, is like I had been separated and divorced for, golly, that would have been almost three-ish, 3.5. I don't remember exactly. So I had been through a lot of the why me and the what did I do to deserve this, and you know, it's like I don't know how to explain it best, but again, I had been there.
Mhm.
You were just getting the better part of me dealing with
That's fair.
those emotions,
I
because
appreciate that.
I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I was a pleasure nor super friendly all the time when I was going through it at the time like you were.
That's fair.
So
Appreciate that perspective.
Yeah, it wasn't that easy.
Okay.
So-
Well, I appreciate that.
Yes.
So back in the day when I was younger, I was super outgoing, super friendly, super extroverted. As I've gotten older, I'm still friendly. I can be outgoing, but it drains me a
Yeah.
lot faster. And I need to not be around all the people all the time.
Mm.
When I was younger, I could be around people all day, every day, and they'd be like, yeah. And then, I don't know, something, your brain and your body start working against you when you hit a certain
Yeah.
age.
Decompression.
And I just like, there's too many people. I just need 5 minutes to recoup.
Yeah.
But anyway, even though I'm friendly, I also like to follow all the rules. I'm very much the rule follower.
Yes, you are.
And I broke a rule, like one of my own personal, like, Amber rules. And I messaged Brian on Facebook, and I just said, I need to know how you are not angry and how you have joy and how you still believe in God.
Yeah.
Because I had like a crisis of faith
Yeah.
in some of those dark days and dark moments of like, man, if God is real,
Why?
what in the world? And and this is, you know, I was still working under a works-based salvation. So in my head, I've confessed my sins. I've confessed my sins. I've gone to counseling. I'm in ladies' Bible study. I've been super submissive as far as I understand submission. Like, I've done
Right.
and I'm still here. So if that's true, then what is God like? Why do I want to serve a God who allows these things? And, you know, so I'm having like all these thoughts and feelings, and didn't want to lose that part of me. My faith has been a big part of me. Even when I was away from the Lord, my faith still kind of kept my moral compass ish intact, ish selectively.
There you go.
So I reached out to him, and this is where I'd like to hear from you.
Okay.
Because I think it's interesting. I just think it's interesting because your context, like, so I explained how I knew you, which was via Facebook, via Mark, kinda, but really no, like I never met, spoken. I didn't know who you were.
No.
So when you got a message from me that said, because it was an emotionally charged, like, how are you not angry? How do you still follow God?
Yeah.
How have you not given up? How do you still have, I remember asking, how do you still have joy?
Yeah.
Because that, like, joy is like a happy place, and it's where I want to live my life, is in joy, and I felt like that had been taken away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you were very joyful and funny and all these things. So what was that like for you to get that message?
Well, it's like, I mean, number one, I could empathize because I had been there. But I remember, because again, we had never met. Literally, the only way I knew you existed, honestly, was because y'all shared an account. So when I got it, it was, first of all, it broke my heart to hear that you guys were splitting up, like truly. And I know everybody's like, yeah, well, then why are y'all married? But in all honesty, when we first spoke, we were praying that they would reconcile. I can remember one of the first few times I remember asking, can I pray for you guys? Because, I know God hates divorce, but back to your question, sorry.
No,
long story short,
that's okay.
It wasn't easy to get to the point that I was at because it's like, I can remember, right after I had separated and before my divorce was final, like I remember one night just coming home and literally bawling up in the living room floor and just bawling my eyes out. And it's like, I'm not little, so for me to bawl up in the floor, there's either something bad wrong or the house is about to explode. But I can remember that, and it's such a raw emotion because when you try to love with all your heart, and again, to be clear, I'm not trying to say I was a perfect husband. I'm not trying to cast blame because there were a lot of things that went on. Some of those I did have part in. So I don't want it to come up here and be like, oh, well, it was all this person's fault. I had nothing to do with it. I was the perfect husband, because that would be a lie. But it's just like you sit there and you go, could I have done this? Or should I have done that? Or, why did I do this? But it was just, when I got your message, I remember just thinking, again, I was really sorry I was really sad to hear that you guys were splitting up. But I also felt like, with me being able to empathize, that I would be there I know it sounds, again, it's so cheesy, in a platonic way. It's not like she DM'd me, which I guess that's the hip thing now.
What does that mean?
You slide into their DMs. That means you're like, hey there.
That sounds gross. What does that mean? What is DM?
We'll talk about it later.
What does DM mean?
Direct message.
Oh.
Yeah. Nothing bad.
Okay. Just like,
wow. Get your head out of the gutter, Amber. So,
sorry, I heard when Titus shows me TikTok videos and stuff, and I'm like, I laugh because people look stupid, but I didn't know that's what that meant.
That's
direct messages.
Yes.
Like on Instagram?
Instagram, Facebook Messenger, places like that, you shoot your shot. You know what I mean? It's like nothing that was between us for an extremely long time was that way. And it was kind of weird because it's like, in the back of my mind, I was always going like, how are you talking to this woman and you're not trying anything? You're not, because it's just like, it just sounds so weird to say, but it's like, I just wanted to be there to empathize, to let you know.
Yeah.
I knew where you were. I knew how hard it is to get there.
And even though initially, you barely responded in the message, it was kind of like, sorry to hear that.
It was vague.
And which is fine, because I could have cared less. I just didn't want to die, I just didn't want to give up on my life. And then you said, so at the time I was working for the satellite campus. I had just started working for the satellite campus. And my campus pastor kind of took in this caretaker role over me, and he did a really good job.
He did the right thing.
Protecting me and my kids, because
I respect him for that.
They were 6 and 8 or 7 and 9, they were little. And so he was afraid once people found out, because the satellite campus was very small and very new. We were there when it started, and we were there the first Sunday. We weren't part of the starting team, but we were there the first Sunday. And my campus pastor was worried that I would have to answer a lot of questions initially, and he knew I just my head and heart couldn't really
Well,
take that.
Yeah, that's
So he made arrangements for me to do to shadow some people and do some like training at the main campus. And some people from the main campus came to the satellite campus just to give me like, I think it was 6 weeks, 4 or 6 weeks to kind of
gather
just,
your stuff.
yeah, let me get my head around. And I didn't really know people at the main campus because I had gone there, but we never plugged in when we were at the main campus. It was like Sunday morning check and then and leave because that's all we could handle at that stage of our marriage. Anyway, so all that to say, I wasn't normally at the main campus, and he was at the main campus. So you suggested.
Yeah, whenever I got your message, I remember thinking, first and foremost, with you having literally just gone through this, I was like, well, why don't we just meet at the church? Because there was a big coffee counter.
Freaking coffee counter.
I know, right?
Sorry. That's coffee counter.
But I just thought that was kind of like accountability for both of us.
Yeah.
It's, just because with you working there, with me basically working there, I just didn't want anybody to get the wrong impression, especially with it.
Yeah, and I wasn't thinking about any of that.
Right.
Like I didn't care.
Right.
I literally thought I will either make a lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
or become a nun. Like I literally was like, screw this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So there was nothing in my brain.
Yeah.
Inappropriate or romantic or anything. So I'm glad that you had the wits about you to like protect
just to
us
protect
in
us.
that way.
Yeah. Because I knew the last thing you needed was have to explain something like that.
Yeah.
But all that to say, we met that morning. We chatted for like
not very long,
10 minutes tops.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we sat down and had this long conversation, but yeah.
Yeah. So we had that little conversation, and it was like, he literally was like, I'm floored. He said, he's like, this is like,
I had no idea.
Which is, I made a note in the book about this, and I just think that's as fair to be the reminder of what social media, how we represent ourselves sometimes on social media, because, and how I was being represented in that men's group, I guess. He was shocked. We'll leave it at that. That's fair, right?
Yes.
And so, and I also think that's part of the big reason I feel really called to be transparent. And again, like I said before, is like, that's not a call on everyone's life. And it's not like everybody's job to tell everybody everything all the time. So hear my heart there. There is I'm not like issuing a challenge to air all your stuff for the world. I'm telling you, this is what God has put on my heart. And like I've told you before, until he releases me from that, I'm going to honor him and obey him. But that was kind of like one of the steps in like, man, what we were portraying to the world was so good that it was shocking what was not, which is so true for so many people. Like we're not unique in that way.
Yeah, that's literally what I was going to say.
Right. So what was interesting is he did send me, Brian had been part of a sermon series talking about like God is bigger.
God is bigger.
And so he sent me the link to his like little video
testimony.
Testimony. Yeah. I was like blanking on the word. And at the very end, he said, God never fails. He never gives up on you. God fights for you. And so what he didn't know until much later in us, like getting to know each other, probably not even until we got married or maybe engaged. Yeah. I told him like I would listen to that every night before bed, the audio of that video of those truths that he was saying, because he was saying like there's his part of the story, but then he ended with like truths from God's word. And I listened to those truths and like kind of formed a mantra, but in a way of like, not in a weird way, but in a way of just like, I need to remember that God is fighting for me. Like Jesus is interceding for me actively and all of that. And I needed that reminder for sure in that part of my life. So I think that's really, that gives you a kind of like a very like first, the meet cute, as it were, in the film world of what that was. So here's what's really like absolutely precious is that when the satellite campus was getting started, Brian and his daughter, one of his daughters, were at the satellite campus helping get it started. Like he was doing tech stuff and AV stuff and all that.
Yeah.
And so his daughter Hannah was going to kids church, which was where Cecily and Titus were in kids church. And so, I was not volunteering. Like this is like way like before I got hired and all that. So I didn't do anything with anything. I just existed. So I didn't know anybody, and I had no like really desire to know anybody. Because I knew like everything, my life was falling apart, but we were at church, like doing the show. Right. And so, after I'd been hired, that summer, the goal, because this was like in January.
It was about a year.
Well, January was when Mark left, and I know that was when I was planning to go to California. So that's when I sent you the first message. Right. So in July was Vacation Bible School. Right. And I had to bring all the kids from the satellite campus to the main campus for Vacation Bible School. Yeah. And what was so funny is I'm registering all these kids, and then Cecily starts screaming, and then I hear another like high-pitched thing, and I turn around, and these two little girls are like running to each other like in slow motion. Yeah. It just felt like that. And it was so sweet and so innocent and just so like just precious. And Cecily's like wrapped up around his daughter Hannah. Now I knew who she was again from like pictures on Facebook, right? But that's all I knew. And so Cecily and Hannah had formed a friendship when they were both at the same campus. Right. And Cecily's like so excited. She's like, "Mama, this is Hannah. I've told you about her." And I'm like, "Oh, hey Hannah," And it's like, "Can she come over?" I'm like, I need to get through Vacation Bible School. And I said, if that's going to happen, it'll have to be at the end of the week. And so I remember I messaged you and said, I didn't realize that the girls were friends, just giving you a heads up. They're trying to plan a sleepover. Yeah. And so, which I think is just so cute, especially now because Hannah is almost 21 and Cecily just turned 20. And like thinking of them as those little babies. And crazy. Oh, it is so crazy.
Breaks my heart a little bit. They're growing up.
Oh, that does not break my heart because I just prefer them older.
I can't argue with that.
I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah. That's fair.
I'm starting to enjoy the pros of older children.
Can't argue with that either.
I'm working on that.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was really, really, just really, really sweet. So in the midst of these two, starting their friendship back up, Hannah starts spending the night at this time.
Quite often.
Yeah. So at this time.
It was summertime. That's right.
Right. It's summertime. So by this point, my kids and I had moved from our home to an apartment. And even like one day I'll tell you the story of how I ended up there, because that's nothing short of God's goodness. Yeah. That's where we ended up. Brand new apartment, enough space for the three of us. It was small, but it had enough space. And I never had just my kids. It was like I had my kids, and then my bonus daughter, Hannah May, was over all the time, and then Hannah Black, and then my best friend's kids were with us a lot because it was the place to be. We had a movie room, we had the pool. Legit. It was a legit setup. Yeah. And so I have nothing but sweet memories of the time in that apartment.
And it's funny because our kids talk about that a lot too.
They do. They really do.
It was, it wasn't the best of time as far as just time.
What was going on.
But they always talk about it.
Yeah.
It's just funny now they're getting older. They think back about it.
They'll say I always remember having pancakes or grilled cheese or ramen. I'm like, because Mama was broke. So you had.
If you wanted to eat.
Yeah, we got creative. What can I feed the most people for the least amount of money? But man, it was so fun. But so in the midst of all that, I'm having kids at my house all the time, and I love it. I love the chaos of a noisy house.
She does love it.
I love the sounds of kids just having fun and being safe and just getting to be kids. And so I really loved our time there. So what was really funny is over the course of that summer, and just so you're aware, during this time, being on staff at a church, it was required. I was in counseling. And I was in divorce care.
Your favorite.
So not my favorite. I
I hate support groups. Me personally,
For
as a
you.
human, should not attend a support group. There is too much going on in here that comes across here, and it causes issues.
I remember.
Oh, Father in heaven, I hated it. Counseling was great. I loved it. I had my person. It was wonderful. We talked. I could, it was great. But support group was really
This
difficult
wasn't
for me.
you.
But if you're someone who enjoys hearing other people's stories
Go for it.
and you can control your facial expressions when people are talking, then it might be for you. I can't do that, but I'm actively working on it. Anyway, so I'm getting all this help, and I have like guard dogs, these men I worked with, like
Yeah, go ahead.
circling around me, making sure I was very safe. Because here's what's real. Here's what's real that was happening that had nothing to do with you, was that at Vacation Bible School, when I had been, separated, not even divorced, like separated 6 months, I have single dads hitting on me at Vacation Bible School.
Mm.
Who does that? Guys, if there's any guy listening, don't hit on a girl at Vacation Bible School. That's dumb.
I would agree.
Do better, men. Do better. Then had like someone sending me flowers on Mother's Day. I know it wasn't you. So there was like weird things happening. And so the men I worked with were very protective, unfortunately for him. But anyway, that wasn't on the radar yet. So at that phase, it didn't matter.
Well, it didn't matter because we weren't.
Oh no, and right. And I'm saying like none of this. It was just like, that's where I was in life. Also, I had no interest in another person.
Yeah.
Even still, I just was like, I kind of hate men.
Yeah.
And I'm working through that. Sorry, but that's just truth. So, but in that time, like the whole summer, Hannah was at our apartment. And then in the fall, and then even like the winter-ish, like they still did. It was harder because they were like at different schools and stuff, but still kind of hanging out.
Just a time thing.
Mm-hmm. But then that next spring, because we were still at the apartment, they were they had gotten a little
Picked right back up.
Yeah, and they'd gotten a little brazen, those girls. So we'll circle back to those girls.
Yes.
Because in the meantime, at church, we were being put in small groups together.
Yes.
Do you remember that?
I do.
What do you remember first?
I remember going to the intern house over beside the church. And
it was like for like a leadership group or
that's
something.
It. Yeah, it was like
right?
Yep. Yep. That's the first time I remember being in a small group, as it were, with you.
Yeah. And
because we were, if I'm not mistaken, we were the only single people.
We were the only single
in
people
there as well.
Yes, sir. We were.
But we were with we had mutual friends as well. So it was
a
weird.
Bunch of people that
not weird in a bad way, but it was weird because it's like, again, we had mutual friends. So, obviously you want to be around your friends, especially when you're starting a new group, you're starting a new study, stuff like that. So yeah, I remember you were there before I was, because I'm always late anyways. But I remember walking in and I was like, oh, Amber's here, and I think we said, hey, and then I sat on the other side of the room.
Yeah, I sat with my girl.
Yeah.
My friend.
Oh, I remember.
My friend. So there were several kind of like those little things where we were put in situations together.
Yes.
And I don't think anyone was intending to put us in.
No, it wasn't
together.
like
it was kind of like it was
thing.
literally like a leadership track thing. And but in those moments is when you're in these situations, reading God's word or going through a book and answering profound questions and
having to kind of bare your soul.
Yeah, being vulnerable in that safe space or whatever. So like starting to know each other more in that way. And this is also at the time you were leading an online Bible study in Philippians, and Philippians is one of my favorite books to read. Yeah, and so like I was in an online Bible study that you were moderating.
Yes.
There were several other people in it.
Yeah, we had just started that, now that I think about it, because I remember we had just started our online campus, and then that was kind of a test thing to see if we did it Thursday nights.
It was Thursday nights.
Yeah,
it was when my kids were with their dad.
Yeah, I remember that. But
yeah. So that was cool. Like just
a lot of random things that we really didn't have control over.
Yeah.
As far as it's not like we were trying to be in the
Right.
same place.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.